What would you do if the person you built your entire life with looked you in the eyes and told you you're not enough, not because you failed, not because you hurt them, but simply because you're boring? I remember the exact moment she said it. It wasn't during a fight. That's what made it worse. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the same one we picked together 10 years ago. The kids were asleep upstairs, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. She didn't raise her voice. She just sighed, leaned back in her chair, and said, "I don't feel anything anymore, you're just too predictable." Too predictable. I didn't even know how to respond. My first thought wasn't anger, it was confusion. Because in my mind, predictable meant stable. It meant I showed up every day. It meant I paid the bills, packed lunches, remembered birthdays. It meant I chose her, over and over again. But here's something I've learned since then: what feels like security to one person can feel like suffocation to another. At the time, though, I just sat there, trying to process it. She kept talking. She said she missed excitement. That she felt like life had become a routine she didn't sign up for. And then she said something that stuck with me in a way I couldn't shake. "I feel like I'm wasting my life." That sentence didn't just hurt, it rewired something inside me. Because suddenly, I wasn't just a husband. I was an obstacle. And if you've ever been in a situation like that, you know how quickly your mind starts connecting dots that maybe you didn't want to see before. The late nights. The sudden interest in going out with friends. The way her phone would light up and she'd flip it over instantly. I didn't accuse her. Not yet. But I started watching. And this is where I want to pause for a second and say something important. When someone begins to emotionally detach, they often rewrite the narrative of the relationship to justify their behavior. It's easier to say you're boring than to admit I'm already halfway out the door. So I paid attention. One night, she said she was going to a coworker's birthday. Nothing unusual. But when she left, something felt off. The way she dressed, it wasn't for a casual dinner. It was intentional. And I hate to say it, but sometimes your gut knows before your mind is ready to accept it. I waited an hour. Then I did something I had never done before. I checked her laptop. And there it was. Messages. Not just flirtation, something deeper. Emotional intimacy. The kind that doesn't happen overnight. They had inside jokes. Memories I wasn't part of. Conversations that went on for weeks, maybe months. He made her feel alive. That's the word she used. And I sat there staring at the screen, feeling like I had just been quietly replaced in my own life. But here's the twist. I didn't confront her right away. I know some people would explode, demand answers, throw everything on the table. But I didn't. Because in that moment, something shifted in me. It wasn't just about her betrayal anymore. It was about what I was willing to tolerate. And for the first time in years, I asked myself a question I had been avoiding. If she sees me as boring, why am I trying so hard to prove I'm not? The next few days, I acted normal. Calm. Observant. I watched how she interacted with me, with the kids, with her phone. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The emotional distance. The subtle impatience. The lack of presence. She had already left, mentally. So I made a decision. I spoke to a lawyer. Not out of revenge. Not even out of anger. But out of clarity. Because here's something people don't talk about enough: when someone disrespects you consistently, staying silent doesn't make you noble. It makes you complicit in your own unhappiness. The lawyer asked me one simple question: what do you want? And I answered without hesitation. My kids. And peace. Everything after that became a strategy. I documented everything. Her absences. Her messages. The instability she was bringing into the home. Not to destroy her, but to protect my children. And then one evening, she came home late again. She walked in like nothing had changed. Like we were still playing the same script. That's when I told her. I know. She froze. You could see it in her eyes, the shift from control to panic. She tried to explain. Said it just happened. That she was confused. That she needed space. But I didn't argue. I just said, you already made your choice. And that's something I want you to really think about, because people often believe the moment of betrayal is the turning point. It's not. The real turning point is what you decide to do after you see the truth. A few months later, everything was finalized. The house stayed with me. The kids stayed with me. She didn't fight it as much as I expected. And I think, deep down, it's because she knew. She knew she had already checked out long before I found out. The irony? The man who made her feel alive didn't stay. Because relationships built on escape rarely survive reality. And now, here's the part that still gets me. A year later, she reached out. Not to apologize, not really. But to say she missed what we had. The stability. The safety. The predictability she once called boring. And I remember reading that message and thinking, that version of me doesn't exist anymore. Because I learned something the hard way. Being steady, loyal, and present is not boring. It's rare. And the moment someone treats it like it's disposable, you have to ask yourself if they deserve it at all. So I didn't respond. I closed the message, went upstairs, and checked on my kids. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever stayed in a situation where you were being quietly disrespected just because you didn't want to lose what you built? And if someone called you boring for being consistent, loyal, and grounded, would you try to change for them, or would you finally realize your value? Because sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away without making a scene, and build a life they no longer get to be part of.
Hey guys, if you want the full story, there is much deeper version where I go into everything. I discover after and before all the details, the sign I ignored, and what happened next. I will leave the link to my Patreon and Spotify in the description if you want to check it out. See you there. If you want to stop being in a situation like this and actually become a man with respect, I put everything in a fully system link in the description. See you there.